Hey guys, so in this post I'm going to be talking about Mulvey's male gaze. One of the first keywords that are really important to understand under this topic is voyeurism. So voyeurism is the practice of obtaining sexual gratification by looking at sexual objects or acts, especially secretively. So Mulvey's research was called Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema. So this was based around the idea of the male gaze. So the theory suggests that women are viewed on screen as unequal. The camera presents women as sexualized for the pleasure of men. We therefore view films through the eye of a man. Furthermore, women are presented as sexualized spectacles and objects of pleasure. The male gaze can be illustrated in a triangle, so there are 3 points to it. The first is a look at the camera as it records the filmatic event, so number 1 is the camera. The second is a look of the audience as they watch the final filmed product, so the second is the audience. And the third look is that of the characters. So this is how the characters look at each other in visual images of the screen illusion. So the third point is the actual characters in the film. So to gain a better idea of Mulvey's theory, I thought it would be a really good idea to read sections of her book that she published. So one part of the book is called Destruction of Pleasure as a Radical Weapon, and in the introduction to this chapter she says, the magic of the Hollywood style at its best, and of all the cinema which fell within its sphere of influence, arose, not exclusively, but in one aspect, from its skilled and satisfying manipulation of visual pleasure. So, to break this sentence down, she's introducing the idea that film directors can anticipate and therefore play on what we want by way of manipulation, using things like dialogue and visual, so what's actually taking place on the screen between the characters. And this links to our triangle, as the director incorporates all 3 aspects of camera, audience, and characters into their game of visual manipulation. She continues to say, this article will discuss the interweaving of that erotic pleasure in film, its meaning, and in particular the central place of the image of women. It is said that analysing pleasure or beauty destroys it. That is the intention of this article. So here Mulvey's telling us her intentions for this article, and that is to explore and break down the meaning of pleasure and beauty, therefore challenging its purpose in the context of a cinematic experience. Further into the article, Mulvey continues to say, but the mass of mainstream film and the conventions within it has consciously evolved, portray a hermetically sealed world which unwinds magically, indifferent to the presence of the audience, producing for them a sense of separation and playing on their voyeuristic fantasy. To break down what Mulvey is saying here, film gives birth to this sealed world, separating the audience from it, however allowing them to view and fantasize about the events as if they could enter this magical and yet untouchable place. She's picked up that movies know what we want and know how to present it, granting some longing for what is being presented on screen. This is where voyeurism comes into the picture, where the viewer will get some kind of sexual gratification from the event. Mulvey says in Part B, the conventions of mainstream films focus attention on the human form. Scale, space, stories are all anthropomorphic. Here, curiosity and the wish to look intermingle with the fascination with likeliness and recognition. The human face, the human body, the relationship between human form and its surroundings, the visible presence of a person in the world. So what Mulvey's saying here is that it makes it easier for us to relate to, and therefore easier to fantasize about certain things that are happening on screen. Section 3 of the article is called Women as an Image, Men as the Bearer of the Look. So in the introduction, Mulvey goes on to say, in a world ordered by sexual imbalance, pleasure in looking has been split between active male and passive female. The determining male gaze projects its fantasy on the female form, which is styled accordingly. In their traditional exhibitionist role, women are simultaneously looked at and displayed, with their appearance coded for strong visual and erotic impact, so that they can be said to connote to be looked atness. Here Mulvey is introducing the idea of the male gaze. So to put this into context, I'm going to use the opening scene to Carrie to explain this in a bit more detail.
No, he didn't. You're making it up.
Yeah, that's me. And I said, well, you have to extend your hand.
Now you're lying.
And
When watching the opening scene to Carrie, I made a list of things that present women as sexual objects. The first thing we see is girls in the background laughing and joking in their bras and underwear. Carrie then takes off her towel. Gentle music begins to play, and her mouth opens with every touch of her body as she breathes in deeply. Close-ups focus on the naked parts of her body as she washes herself. Slow motion is then added to certain bits to make the moments last a little longer, especially when she's washing herself. For a female viewer, this can make them feel a little bit uncomfortable. However, through a male gaze, it's an ideal scene creating the perfect fantasy. We can see in almost every film ever created, women are presented in a sexual way, and Mulvey has picked up on this and explored it in enormous detail. I would really strongly recommend taking the time to read through Mulvey's research. It's really interesting to see the kind of things she picks up on, and they're not necessarily things that we'd notice in film, so I think she's been really clever in her research in picking up on these things that otherwise would have gone amiss, and we don't really see them, and yet they're just so important to pick up. Mulvey's research has definitely made me see movies in a different way now, and I actually understand where she's coming from with the idea of the male gaze. When I look at a movie now, I'll pick up on certain ways in which women are presented and then apply her theory, and it really does make sense. I think it really is important to get a good grasp on the theory and then be able to apply it to as many movies as you can, because it really does link to so many movies that have been produced out there.